Back to All Packed Up. It's myself, Coleman, and Hunter making his debut
What's up? What's
on
up?
the pod.
Welcome
Dude.
to All Packed Up. I'm Hunter.
Welcome, man.
Not much
Glad
else
you're
to
here.
say. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, we got something a little different, guest-wise, today, I'd say. Should we reveal his name? No, let's not. He's an awesome dude, has built a career in the music festival industry, music, good dude. Industry.
Seems got like a man of all trades, a man of many hats,
certainly.
who's kind of found his niche in something really cool and curated. And that's a little bit of what we're going to talk to him about. You know, like here we're all about getting outside, all about helping people have a better adventure, educate, inspire them, yada, yada. But our guest today is a little bit more off the beaten path.
A little bit. I have no doubt that our listeners will dig everything that he
they'll
has to say.
Dig.
Yeah. He's one of those guys that you like talk to him for 5 seconds and you're like, you probably have all the stories in the world.
You have all the stories in the world. You have better style than me. You'll see.
Yeah.
And I just want to be you because you seem cool.
Yeah. No, I just want to say a quick announcement for everybody who's listening. Man, we are about getting outside and going on trips and getting out of town. So if you have something that, you know, like a picture, video, story, whatever that you want us to go over on the podcast, maybe with our guests too, please send it in. Like we want to not only hear about it, but talk about it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of what you've been doing with this is just like A, helping people get outside, and then B, like giving them some inspiration, some enthusiasm of things they can do, should try.
Yeah.
Like we interviewed a fly fishing guy recently, and I was like, gosh, I got to get on the river. I got to do something.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's about. And so whether you're a listener, whether you're just hearing about us now, like if you have a cool story, picture, photo, like we'd love for you to email that to us. We'll put the link in the bio.
Yeah.
Email it to us, and we'd love to share your stories and stuff like that as well. What's the last trip you went on?
Shoot, man, I just got back from Hawaii.
Woo, aloha!
Yeah. It was sick, honestly. I don't want to get into the whole story, but surfed a bunch, and it's a good time.
Great story.
Yeah.
I went.
I mean, quick story. Don't stand up while surfing in Hawaii.
Okay.
Reef is there, and you'll cut your foot into shreds.
Oh, like when you fall off.
Yeah.
Even
when you fall off, don't stand up because it's.
I got to say, Coleman, that ain't for me.
It was
that
awful,
ain't for me.
Actually, day 2 sliced my foot pretty bad. Also, wear sunscreen.
Cold hard facts from Coleman.
Yeah,
right there.
What else is new with Pakmule? I guess if you're on YouTube, go check out some of our other videos.
Yeah, we're really trying to make a push, trying to get out on the YouTube sphere, drop some videos every now and then, whether it's funny, communal, or educating. Educational. We're just really trying to create a community around that, about being outside.
Yep.
And because that's what we do at Pakmule.
Yeah. Amen.
Yeah. Well, enough of us.
Yeah. Matt Bizer, ladies and gentlemen.
Matt freaking Bizer.
Matt Bizer, dude. Thank you for being here, man.
Yeah.
Seriously.
What's up?
Yeah,
What's
thanks
up?
for having me, guys. Thanks.
The whole crew's in town. Haley's off mic. Say hello, Haley.
Hello, Haley.
She's been holding that one in.
We are pumped to have you on, honestly. You every time you come in, we're like, we got to just talk to him for an hour, maybe.
Well, thanks,
Yeah.
man.
Let's get into it, though. Just tell us a little bit about who Matt Bizer is, or maybe who he was, for that matter, or where'd you grow up? Where'd you come from?
Yeah, so
Texas guy, right?
Yeah, I grew up here in New Braunfels. Yeah,
Let's go,
New Braunfels,
sweet.
Texas.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, home turf, and
Yeah.
grew up here, moved away for college for a minute,
Okay.
went to TCU for a bit, then back to Austin.
Go Frogs.
Bopped around
Right,
between
go
UT and Austin Community College and everywhere else. So I feel like I can claim all of the alma maters. And then I moved. I worked in film, so I got into the industry doing film, and I actually had a production company. But I started in like union, movies when I was in my early 20s, actually like around 18. I got into the union around that time and started working on productions, which took me to like New Mexico and East Coast, and I even worked in like Detroit and stuff, worked in Louisiana a little bit, and then
Wow, all over.
yeah, so then I was back here for a couple of years, and then wrapped kind of the last movie I worked on was actually a film with Willie Nelson, and it was called When Angels Sing. If you wanted to look it up, it's a like Christmas movie with Harry Connick Jr. So
wow,
it's gonna be good.
That's awesome.
And
yeah,
and so so from there I moved up to New York around that time period, and kind of got burned out of the like film world. It kind of like wasn't what I expected going into it. I think there was a lot more. Like I really was into the creative, wanted to direct, wanted to make my own projects, and I kind of realized very quickly and at a young age that like that was a process that took money and was something that was more about fundraising, more about coming from different angles. And I didn't actually complete college, and so I didn't make like a thesis film. I didn't build those relationships in that way. And so coming up in film and seeing like guys who were in their like 40s, 50s on like third marriages, and they never see their kids, and they're working 17-hour days, I was like I think I gotta make some changes. Yeah. And so then I ended up starting a production company, moving to New York.
Cool.
And it just took me on like a totally different track. And so I got into the fashion world, did a bunch of live streaming and production there, and then full circle kind of around that time period. Cool. Threw a South by party for my buddy, and then got into the music industry on accident.
Awesome. So fast forward, and I don't think we mentioned this in the intro, but you are the co-founder of the infamous Luck Reunion. Tell us a little bit about how, and we'll get into it more later, but how that came about. I mean, how did you get involved with the family to where you are now?
Yeah, so I Luck was a kind of like a weird, I like to say it's like the really serendipitous story, because like I was kind of talking about it before, but I had never intended to go into music festivals or events or throwing anything like that. I grew up here in New Braunfels, grew up around a ton of musicians. All my buddies played music,
live music.
Yeah,
too.
And I didn't intend to like be a musician. It's like, and I grew up around it. I did film, so I was like, I'm the camera guy. I'll be behind the scenes. I don't want to be in front of the camera.
Yeah,
I don't want to be the guy that's the face of anything. Yeah, no, look at me. This is probably full circle. I can't escape it. And so so like through the process of just like life and working in production and film, I crossed paths with a lot of people in the music industry over time. Started making music videos, started doing that kind of thing. And then, of course, I had a friend that was like, hey, I want to throw a South by Southwest party. I don't have any gigs. You produce things. And so it's sort of like what ended up happening is I threw him a South by party in like, God, that was like 2011, 2010, somewhere in that range.
And you were in New York at this time?
I was actually still in Austin around that time.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I had done, I had worked on like True Grit and a couple other films, came back, and then When Angels Sing was probably like kind of overlapping that time period. So I did his party before I did that movie.
Okay.
And so I threw this party. Then I go to New York on like our down season, like kind of I want to say like in chronological, I lose track of it a little bit, but I meet Willie and his family like working on this movie. And then I go to New York with a friend's band, and I'm making this like travel documentary about the band. Cool. And while I'm there, I meet who is now our other business partner in Luck, was Ellie Fletcher. She is now Ellie Derniak, but she was at this show, and she like knew all the words to the songs and knew this band. And I was like, why did this Austin band, like there's just got the super fan in the front row? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And so we all got to talking and like hung out for the night, whatever. A bunch of our friends were all there with the band, and then I'm talking to her, and she's wearing this ring, and I'm like, that's like the Nelson family ring. Like I hadn't recognized it. I've been on this movie. I've like been around. I'm like seeing this, and I'm like, interesting. And like asked her about it a little bit, and she was like, obviously like didn't want to talk about it. And so it just full circle. Yeah.
Tell listeners what that ring is. I vaguely know.
So this is actually. We're not quite onto the Luck ring, but this is like the Willie Nelson family ring. So they actually like made rings back. I want to say it was probably in the 70s, 80s. They're like class rings, and they all have like the Willie Nelson family moniker around them.
Dang.
And the band all had these rings, and so it was like the family, the crew, the band. They all had their like family ring.
Okay.
And so
I'm stealing that, by the way. I'm making Floyd family rings.
Yeah. And so it was like this thing, and like I recognized it, and then we started talking about it all, and she obviously, no one wants to be like, yeah, totally. It's like she was kind of like, oh God, you saw it, and so we're talking about it a bit.
Well, it's like not something everybody would recognize too. I mean, I feel like
exactly, yeah. It's like you just like took being from Texas, right? It's like you had to know kind of the legacy of the story to like recognize that thing. And then, anyway, long story short, like we end up all becoming friends, and it becomes this like I end up being in New York for another project and realized that like there's this music scene that's happening there at that time period. A lot of my friends were moving up there, a lot of musicians, and there was this sort of thing happening in like the East Williamsburg. Like that was just kind of becoming like a place where people were moving, like the hipster scene or whatever.
Right.
But there was a ton of musicians, and all the bands from Texas were coming up there. And so I moved up there kind of in chase of this like other like really creative thing that was going on. And there was also like a lot of opportunities in New York. And so chased that. And in the meantime, like basically the first party I threw, people were like, you got to do that again. And so I'm in New York, we're having the rap party for that like When Angels Sing movie. We come back to Texas. And so it's just, this is why it's kind of muddled. There's like, I'm moving, we're filming bands. I'm transitioning out of the film industry into making my own production company. Yeah. And in this time period, I end up at this dinner at, I always say it's like, I believe it was Maudie's Tex-Mex. Like, and I think there was one like in kind of central North Austin. Okay. And we're sitting at the table.
Shout out.
With Willie. Yeah, right? Yeah. We're sitting there with Willie across from me, like drinking a margarita from a straw, just like slurping it down, and like his wife. And I'm already kind of like, you look around the room and people are like all staring over. It's like no one's eating, they're just staring. Right. So you're already kind of in this moment. And then Ellie, who was at this dinner as well, nudges me and she's like, hey, tell them about this idea you had. And so like
nonchalant.
Yeah. And like,
but Ellie opened that door.
Yeah, open the door. And she's Willie's, so like she's Willie's sister's granddaughter. And so so there's like obviously this tie of full circle, which is,
there's a lot of these rings going around.
Exactly. So long story is like, I'm at the table, things shift to that. Willie's wife is like, yeah, what's up? Tell us about it. And so I'm sitting there. We basically say like, hey, like the ranch is this really cool space, like Luck, Texas, which was the movie set built for Red-Headed Stranger, his like 85 film, is just sitting there, and they're not using it much anymore. Willie had some wild parties back in the 80s there, things like that. But like he's on the road and it's just there, and there's like no one using it. It's falling apart. Like things are collapsing, buildings are starting to decay. And I was like, God, it'd be so cool to throw a party there. And I was thinking it was just like we're drunk at a bar one night and you mention it. Never did I think I'd be sitting at a table with Willie and
pitching
his wife, telling them this idea. And then my way I quote it, famous words of Annie, where his wife is Annie Nelson. She says, like, get insurance. And like they kind of chuckle about it and that's it. Yeah. Right. And I think that's funny. Like joke over, move on. Well, I go back to New York, and I think it was probably like a week or two later that the conversation comes up. It's like, how's it coming? And we're like, I'm like, oh, that's real. And so then I'm like
scrambling, like it's going great.
Well, it begins the journey of like this festival that at the time I had no idea. I'd never thrown an event other than a tiny party. Yeah. And knew nothing about throwing music festivals. So I just like started calling everyone I knew that threw music events and worked tour managers, people who were out there on the road with bands I knew, called people I knew and said like, hey, this is what we're talking about doing. What do you think? And so I'd be like, hey, Joel, who's another guy who lives here in town. And I'm like, you want a stage manager, like run our stage, stages, right? And then, so I'm just calling these people. And then, it's like someone tells me, oh, you have to have a sponsorship deck, to raise money and figure it out. And I'm like, okay, what's a sponsorship deck? So I Google sponsorship deck and try to find examples. And then I'm like, okay, so it's like a movie pitch, but like for events. And so just kind of this evolving thing. And before I knew it, it was like, I'm standing in the middle of Willie's ranch and we're throwing a party with, I think the first year was like 1,000 people, 800 to 1,000 people. Okay. And so
it's still kind of around that size, right?
Now we're at about 3,800. So it's grown. Wrong. Yeah, it grew like first year was about 1,800. Cool. Second year was a little over 2,000.
But that's somewhat intentional.
The word got out. What's that?
It's somewhat intentional to keep it intimate.
Yeah, exactly. Like the whole point originally, like the first years, I was the crazy one who was like, we should just make it so secret. No one knows about it. We're going to like send buses into town, blindfold people, drive them out there, and they're going to get off the bus and be like, what's going on?
Take their phones.
Yeah, exactly. Like that was my idea. And then everyone was like,
that's
no,
cool too.
You can't
like
do that. Yeah, people were like, that's, like, that's not
it's
okay.
Like old school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that would create like a super mysterious, like what's going on.
A lot of liability.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I'm over here like, they're like, you can't, that's like a little too creepy. Like people aren't into that. So I was like, all right, fine.
Like, is that Willie Nelson?
I think it would have worked.
So what was the time frame from being in New York, getting the call of like, hey, how's it going, to actually throwing the first Luck?
2 months.
2 months.
Somewhere in that range. This was in like winter time. Yeah.
So
it was
like
from
get
winter
insurance
to spring.
now.
It was a wild scramble. And like, I think that in that time period, I mean, I didn't know any better. I was
Right.
just sort of like, yeah, I can do. I mean, I produced music videos in a week. Like, I could
Yeah.
do this, and
Just get
so,
the people to right places.
yeah,
Yeah.
just got to get it
Right.
all figured out. And
That's
so
crazy though.
scrambled, called people, took a bunch of like meetings. Like I called my buddy, a friend of mine, Clay, who was like one of the people who really kind of brought people together at the beginning. Worked at John Varvatos in New York, and he had been working around a lot of music stuff. And I called him and I was like, "Hey, do you know like anybody who might want to sponsor this?" And I was like, "Do you think Varvatos would sponsor this or whatever?" And
Wow.
so he was like, "I don't know." And so he took it to them, and then he came to me and like with some other ideas, and we ended up partnering with like another group out of New York and did like the first year with them, and then it just kind of like, yeah, it
Snowballed.
just kind of kept happening.
It really is a story of like of all these doors opening up like in your life, right? To South by and throwing these parties and like the film, even the film industry, to meeting random people, you know. I mean,
Yeah, I feel like that a lot. And listening to your story, I love the word like serendipity. You know,
Yeah.
like it's just like, I mean, I've kind of lived my life as like, I feel like it's like a bunch of options in front of me and I
Yeah.
choose one path and I go and I throw shit at the wall and it gets me someplace. Like listening to your story, it's just like you saying yes to things. Maybe
Yeah.
it didn't feel like an awesome option. Maybe it was a lot of desperation in the moments, but leading you from like Austin to your colleges to being in the film industry to New York fashion, music, Willie, Ellie. And it's
Yeah.
like, whoa, and here
All
you are now,
these-
like having this really, which I would say like seems like a very I mean, I've been there, filmed there, like a curated festival in Texas with Texas legacy and culture, and it's super cool.
Yeah,
And for you, like your first words being like, I grew up in a town and there was music.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's awesome. It's really interesting.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it was just like the whole. I mean, that's just sort of like been kind of my perspective on life. Is I was just sort of like, you come into stuff, and every time when I was younger, like I was really like, I was very creative when I was young. Wanted to make projects, wanted to make movies, and I was very like hard headed. Like this is what I'm gonna do, and tried to force things into existence. Like I just will them into existence. Like
Mhm.
and it works. But it was like always like head down, grinding, pushing so hard to make things happen, and it's like it's a battle
Yeah.
all the time. And I just like at one point in time I just started like changing my perspective a little bit to just being like ride the wave, you know, just kind of like
Let's just
feel
ride,
what
yeah.
happens, and when opportunities present themselves or things that you don't expect show up, like follow that, see where it goes, go down
Yeah.
the rabbit hole. And I think that just it led to meeting some really rad people over the years. It's led to like project to project to you know referral to events to you know everything.
Yeah.
And
You
it's
not
still
even
happening.
understanding that the opportunity was there.
Yeah.
How's it going?
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then eventually, like, I can't count the amount of things in life that have like come full circle like that, where it's
Yeah.
like they show back up at your doorstep 5 years later, and you're like,
wow.
yeah, let's do it,
Looking back,
you know?
yeah.
So
What advice would you have for somebody? And we haven't even really gotten into luck yet, but like,
No.
what advice would you have for somebody who maybe is a creative or wants to just do something different and get out of the office and has these ideas, like you said, like looking at options? Like, do you have any advice to someone like that?
I mean, I think it's like, I would say that like the biggest feedback I give in the sense of like being a creative person who wants to try things is one is like to do like kind of entrepreneurial like creative projects and things in the world we are in or starting new companies. Like first you have to just like give yourself thick skin right off the bat. Like just
Yeah.
take a lot of no's and like pretend like just everything needs to be like A to B. Just don't even worry about anything that's a no.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna keep happening your whole life. So
Yeah,
just
you-
like keep trudging forward through the swamp of life, and like you will make it to the other side. It's like that's my first thing. And I think other than that, I would say that you know it's like none of these kind of projects like this or anything are like easy. So like on the surface, someone might look at all this and be like, oh, so serendipitous and all that, but it's like it was,
Right.
but it's been a grind the whole
Oh,
time. And
yeah.
so like don't let anybody fool you into thinking it's easy. Enjoy the ride, like work hard because you care and you want something, but like enjoy the process of that. You know, you hear that old wives' tale all the time, right? It's like people say like, oh yeah, like, you know, enjoy the ride, like life is that. But it's like the truth is if you don't like make the best out of those experiences and the hardships and like whatever, it's like you won't keep doing it. And I think that like so many people are like right there on the edge of things and they give up. And I think
Right.
that that's the biggest thing you could do is just push through and just like
Yeah.
see things through, because you can almost make anything happen if you're like stubborn enough.
Right.
And I would say I'm a mix of stubborn and curious,
Yeah.
so like it works. You know?
I feel like we probably all know people who have been on the cusp or
Yeah.
have pushed for something and then gave up. And I mean, life is
Sure.
life, stuff happens, but breaks my heart when I see that. you know?
Totally.
So it's cool to see.
You gotta just keep like sometimes you shift. Sometimes it's not
Yeah.
the same mission you started with, but like you find your way. It's like you gotta keep that optimism the best you can. It's hard,
Yeah,
but
totally.
yeah.
Cool. Well, for our listeners, a little different segment. There's probably no easy segue into this, but our producer Haley has a few speed questions for.
This is also where we
you,
bring
Matt.
out the drinks.
Yeah, also sponsored
All right.
by.
Sponsored by Ziegenbach All Hands and Real Ale.
You're right. No free advertising, but
Sure, yeah,
All
that's
Han-
right,
we have
yeah.
All Hands, which is pretty strong.
shout out to those guys
I
too.
got an
Good guys.
APA and a Ziegenbach.
I might do the Ziggin. I don't know if I can
Likewise.
handle that at noon. See, are these twist off? Do we
Take
know?
the Ziegenbach. I'm not trying to drink.
Ziegenbach
I'll take
twisties.
this. You got sparkling water in there?
I do have sparkling water in there. Good
Ah.
guy.
Oh, so you leave me hanging.
Spin
over
drifts.
there.
Spin drifts.
Haley?
Alright, cool.
Got another
Spin
spin drift
drifts.
today?
No.
I'm good.
I have an All Hands.
Let's just say I was coming into this meeting with a kombucha and I'm leaving with a Ziegenbach. So that's where we're going here. Yeah,
Winning.
I was just twist off. I'm going to do it. I did it. I
Uh,
fumbled.
All right, speed
Cheers, man.
round.
Yeah, cheers, man.
Prost.
Cheers,
as they
guys.
Y'all
say.
ready?
Haley, what you got
Ready.
for us?
All right.
One music genre for the rest of your life. What is it? Go.
Ooh, I would just say folk because it's like I can listen to songwriter music
Yeah,
continuously.
vibey for sure.
Now I'm questioning mine, but
Yeah.
I don't even listen to it anymore, but I'd say classic rock, probably.
Yeah, good.
Mm.
I'd probably say
And
like
class.
Americana. Does that even exist anymore? Americana.
Yeah.
It's an amalgamation. That's a good one because it covers everything.
Yeah,
You can
yeah.
call
Yeah,
any of
Coleman-
those
so
on if you
Mumford
want
and
to.
Sons the rest of his life.
They're coming to ACL.
All right, favorite up and coming artist or band?
This is not, I feel like, the proper band for our listeners, but
Okay, man.
there's a band called Zeal and Ardor. It's a one-man band. He's like half black, and it's like really folk music mixed with with death metal, and it's super interesting.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Zeal and Ardor.
I feel like you made that up.
I
I
can't
know.
make that up.
Folk
Don't
music,
go look
death
it up.
metal?
Yeah, yeah.
I'm into it.
Interesting.
I'll go. I'm listening to. I mean, they're kind of my buddies, but a band called Briscoe. You know, 'em?
Yeah.
Yeah, two guys in Austin, kind of folky style. They just actually toured with Noah Kahan
I don't know if I know that one.
and Rustin Kelly.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I feel like you're making names up.
up and coming.
Right on.
No, dude, they're good dudes. They're a lot of fun too. They just like graduated from college too, so they're like
Briscoe's
full
good name.
send.
Yeah.
yeah.
Man, the pressure, like when you do what I do, is like trying to pick a band. That's
Yeah,
your
dude,
favorite
no
up and
pressure,
coming
Are you
man.
act.
allowed to say
Yeah,
that?
you're gonna
Well, I can't pick favorites
Yeah.
either. I wouldn't say, but I mean, I have a lot of bands I'm a fan of right now. But like, I would say that like some of the bands that we did a program this year where we go find young new bands.
Cool.
So like, I would say that there was 3 artists all that were part of that, and it was like going into it, I didn't know how much I would love each of them, and so like we did this thing with this kid Angel White who's out of Dallas.
Yeah.
And he was awesome, incredible
sweet.
dude. And then a band called RC Drive out of Long Island. And
Oh,
they were
yeah.
super fun
good
and a
name.
blast. And
Yeah.
they're just like, they're so stoked on music. They
Yeah.
were just like, it made me want to be 20 and like be out with them on the road.
That's cool.
And there's a girl, Perla, who we worked with out of New York, who was also
Nice,
just like
nice.
incredible. And they're totally different vibes. And
Yeah.
it's cool. I mean, that's my favorite part about what we do, searching
Yeah.
new bands out.
So
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget if I don't ask this now, but do y'all kind of are you bringing any of those that like level of band to Luck on purpose, like to kind of introduce a new age or
Yeah, what's your philosophy with getting
Yeah.
bands at Luck?
I mean, that's like our biggest pride and joy of the whole project is like the whole intersection of like legacy and people who paved the way, and then like up and coming young new artists who are like trying to pave their own new path in their own ways. Like,
Yeah.
and we try to like look for bands who are like kind of pioneering their own thing, or they're like trying things, or they're like innovating, or they're, you know, just taking it seriously and really wanting to do something unique. And so that's our favorite part of the event. Like I would say that like my least favorite part of booking the festival is headliners, because it's like it's really more just a negotiation.
right?
And like I love them, you know, you get I'm so
Yeah.
stoked to see like the
Right.
big names up on stage or whatever, but like booking all of these up and coming bands who are just like, when they get the phone call, are so psyched,
Yeah,
and like it's an opportunity, and then
It's a moment to them.
yeah, and then seeing them come back like 8 years later and be like, too expensive, we can't afford them, is like rad. Like having people, like we've had like Tyler Childers or Billy Strings play to like 8 people and people ignored
That's
them. Like
incredible.
Phoebe
Oh my
Bridgers
goodness.
played and no one listened because
now
they
these-
didn't know who she was and they were just like, oh, I don't know,
Wow.
some chick singing. And now if they knew, they would be like,
Did they still love the
Yeah.
experience?
it's like they
Without naming
do.
names.
They enjoy the music, but they brush it off,
No,
right?
I mean the musicians.
Oh, the
like,
musicians? I think so. Like, I would say
Yeah.
a lot of people, like, really have a pride in it and come back. Like, I think that one of our big things is trying to create that community feel. Like, everybody's part of it. Like, the headliner to the, like, smallest band, there's no real green rooms, so they all share common space. Like, they meet each other. And that's something we've always wanted to have it be, is
It's
just
not
like
artist worship. It's
yeah, it's like it's
experience.
community. It's artist
Yeah.
community, and like bringing them in, bringing like the people who work it to like some of the vendors and stuff. It becomes like you see each other at another festival 6 months later, and you're like, hey, what's up? You know,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
and that's what we've always wanted it to be, and it's cool to see now. Like, you know, we're 11 years in to when it started, and like just seeing these people come back and like, you know, I can't say who it might be, but I think the headliner next year is someone who like went from like playing, you know, tiny stage and acoustic in the garden to like now would there's no way we could afford them,
Wow.
you know. So it's rad. It's like
really
that's
cool.
So
a
it's
fun
been
program.
11 years since you got that call in New York and
Yeah.
did the first one 2 months later.
Yeah.
How old are you?
I know, 37, man.
Gosh, you look great. Great skin.
Thanks, man. It's because I'm not drinking Ziegen vodka, dude, man.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Haley, next
Sorry,
question.
All right.
I interrupt that very speed question.
Okay. Dead or alive, who would you want to see live? Maybe you've already seen them, maybe you haven't yet.
Dead or alive? Good question.
My father. Oh, you mean musician?
Your father?
Yes.
I'm kidding. My father's alive.
Man, I was like, this just took a
Just took a turn.
go down another place.
Yeah.
Don't make me go first.
I'll go. I think Michael Jackson, honestly.
Oof, yeah.
Controversial.
Come on.
And I could go down a lot of those roads, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
say John Prine because like
Oh,
I've got to see him once, but we had him booked for the year that he passed away. Like, so like going into the pandemic, he was gonna play our festival, had to have
Man.
surgery,
So he's right
canceled.
there.
and we never got to have it, and so that was
Yeah.
one of those things where I'm like,
Yeah.
I just am a huge fan, and not having
Yeah.
it come full circle was a
That's
bummer.
good.
Yeah.
That is the hardest thing. And so mine would be Jimi Hendrix. And it would be, I'd want to be at like Woodstock. You know what I mean? Like
There, yeah.
my sisters and I over spring break, we just like pulled up YouTube. You know, my sister's like 10 years younger than me. What do we have to
Yeah.
talk about? Everything's bussing. I don't know.
Yeah.
And we're watching these old music videos or old footage of like all these old bands playing. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
watching like Santana or Jimi Hendrix. Like it's just incredible. And I
Yeah.
would love to. Also, like everyone's skinny back then. What's changed, man? Nut seed oils? I don't know.
Well, that no one
mean-
ate. All
No
of
one ate,
Woodstock.
that's it.
Like, there's
More drugs.
Yeah.
But it's like that would have been awesome
Yeah.
to see. Especially like just the
Yeah.
fathers of the music we listen to today. You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
That's why, I mean, Willie Nelson, I know we'll get into it, but that's what's incredible. It's someone
Yeah.
who's like a father of a type of music who's still around playing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's somebody say, yeah, or you gotta answer.
Haley,
this.
you got one?
Crickets.
That's all right.
Never heard of him.
Okay, no, I don't. Something not many people know about you.
Something that you guys always look at me. I need time to process.
Well, the good thing is people listening probably know nothing about me. So
There you go. So tell them anything.
I guess on the topic, I play guitar.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know
Wow,
that.
I didn't know that either.
Well,
Guys, thanks. Good.
I'll share
working
that
with
because
you
like
guys.
I don't tell
Yeah.
anyone that I play music, including the musicians, and I like
Ah.
write songs. No one would ever hear
I feel
them.
like I'd
Really?
look at you and
Even
be
my
like, "You're a
wife's maybe
musician."
Yeah,
heard,
me
like,
too.
2 songs
Why is that?
ever.
You think you?
I don't. It's not my desire to like perform.
Yeah.
I'm also like sort of more introverted. That's another.
Yeah.
I would say I'll just go right into mine then because
go
like
to it.
one of the first things I would say is that like I'm relatively like an extroverted introvert.
Ah.
So as much as I love interacting with like small groups of people, I'm not a big party person. So I
Yeah.
throw music festivals
So-
and I have anxiety all day because I'm walking around getting cornered by like person after
Yes.
person as I walk
Why have I
around.
done
You're
this to myself?
exhausted.
I've created my own nightmare.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I literally find places to hide throughout the day to like watch.
Yeah.
I'd love to be a
Stuff.
therapist and just talk about why you're doing this.
Yeah.
Um,
You wanna-
Mine would be, I mean, the people here know it, but I'm in the cult of CrossFit. And I'm probably
Good
the
answer.
fattest CrossFitter I know.
No.
That goes
Come
every
on,
day.
no.
Stop,
No.
Hunter.
But you can pick
Uh,
up a Volkswagen.
A tiny one.
Cult is correct.
It's a
though.
cult. It's a
Yeah.
cult.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Okay, and this last one is for Matt only. Besides luck, what's the favorite project you've worked on, and why is it Spy Kids 4?
She wrote these. By the
I love
way.
that.
She
I
wrote
love it.
these.
Spy Kids was actually kind of fun. I got, like Jeremy Piven was like. I got
Is there
to
even
see
a fourth?
Austin
Yeah,
with
yeah,
him
that's
having
awesome.
a breakdown
Oh my
on
gosh.
set. Man, my favorite project I worked on. It's hard to say because they're like everything's so different. Like I really have like worked on so many really random projects. In the film world, I think my favorite project I worked on was True Grit. Just being that, like I was a huge Coen Brothers fan and just getting to like sat next to them every day, all day. Like I was like running their monitors in their village and everything.
Dang.
And
It's
so I
wild.
got to like just be there and work with Roger Deakins, who was my favorite DP. It was like
Incredible.
having all of that next to me all day was ridiculous. I just couldn't,
Yeah.
And then outside of that, it was like doing music video. Like I did a music video for Chuck Berry, like right before he
Wow.
passed away, which was ridiculous.
Wow.
And then I would say in the fashion stuff, it would have been maybe we did a big like Saint Laurent show where we like overlooked New York, and it was like we were flying drones and had this amazing
Dang.
like 7-8 camera production and like
Wow.
just this insane like stadium they built. And
That's crazy.
so it's just like I mean I feel like that's the thing is I just enjoy working like a lot, and so it's I have so much fun working with groups of people and creating things that every project can really be like kind of my favorite. If you think back to like the experiences, like I have these memories of like working on military training films in like El Paso and like
Wow.
New Mexico, where we just had like a blast. Like I got to like fire like 60 caliber machine guns off the top of Humvees and like sit in an Abrams
Sure.
tank while I'd fire.
We
And
want
so-
you.
Like when else are you gonna do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So
So like,
cool.
yeah, go work in a creative, weird industry and don't make money, and you'll have so
Yeah.
much fun.
Yeah.
So many
Yeah.
experiences.
Exactly.
Well, you've created it's like you talk about you love all these projects because you've had these experiences doing them, and like, but that's the life you created. The journey that you've created for yourself is having those experiences as work, whether
Yeah.
fruitful or not, which it sounds like it is, but it's
Yeah,
awesome, man.
it can be. It's like, I mean, I'll say this. When I was like, I was like probably in my like kind of college age. I worked for a friend of mine, and I'm not going to name anything about the company or my friend and call him out on it. But he worked at like a big, like a corporate job. Like it was like definitely a 9 to 5. You get there at like 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and you leave at 5 or 4:30 or whatever it was. And it's like, I went there and it was like, I worked there for 1 week, filled in and did this job at a desk in a cubicle. And I was like 20, and I sat there, and I remember it was like, tomorrow is Jeans Day. And I was like, what? And then it was like, they had cake one day, and it was like Office Space just appeared in my mind when they're all passing the cake around, and they're all so stoked about cake.
Yeah.
And everybody was just amped to just go have cake for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And I was like, if cake is this exciting, like I can't.
It's like
I have
1
to,
week
I have
too
to
long.
create my own
Yeah.
life because like I can never be this guy. It's just not me.
Yeah.
I felt like a rat in a cage the whole time, and it was like that was one of the biggest life. And it's funny because like if my friend hears this, and he might, like I'm gonna laugh because it's like he's gonna be like, I hate you for saying that.
Yeah. Is he still there?
What's it? No, he moved on to a different company and everything else. But
Okay.
it's like he's a
cubicle.
very creative guy, but chose
Yeah,
that
they got
track.
bought.
Like he's always, but hey, look, he's got a nice house, he's got a pool.
Yeah. Heck
He's
yeah.
like,
And
I-
for some people,
Retirement.
He can give me grief all day long about
Yeah.
how I can barely make rent and still live paycheck to
You
paycheck.
can afford
like,
a pack
whatever.
meal.
Yeah, exactly. He
Totally,
probably
yeah.
has 3,
Yeah.
But
Yeah. I mean, and that life is for some people.
Yeah.
Like,
Climbing the ladder.
Yeah. And they just want to sit down and grind in that way.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, that's speed questions. Thank you, Haley.
Speed round.
welcome.
Yeah, brought to you by
Cheers, yo.
Spindrift and all
yeah,
hands.
cheers.
That was good.
I'm gonna go back to coffee. I want to get back. I want to go back to you're sitting at this table. Willie's across from you. What is he doing when you're pitching this, or is he care at all, or?
I mean, Willie, in a lot of interactions with him over the years, like he takes things in and he sort of just like gives you this like cold nod of like
Yeah.
approval and willingness or whatever, or like he'll like he holds space for you. But it's funny because like out of all the interactions I've had with him over the years, it's like he's very chill about it. So it was like he was like, yeah. It was just kind of like I got the
Yeah.
nod of approval, and it was
Yeah.
like, and we didn't really know each other. Like we knew each other from the movie. We'd been on set together. Like we've had interactions. I think it was still this thing where he's like, "There's this guy Matt. I've met him 4 or 5 times, and he's
Yeah.
here, and like, my wife seems to think he wants to do this, so why not?
Yeah, so
Whatever,
let's listen.
He's that kind of like personality too, where I feel like so often he's kind of like, yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Like I just feel like he's
His
in
world
all
is
my
big.
interactions,
Yeah.
and he like he just lets things play out. He does it with people. He reads. It's so entertaining to see him interact with people and like read them, and then like whether he's like got a quick-witted joke to call them on or corner them a little bit in their conversation, or put them on the edge of their seat. Like I think he's a great observer of humanity, and like you can obviously tell in his songs, and I think you see it when you're around him because he's quick-witted, he's clever, he's listening, and I think it gives him that edge that's like amazingly fun to to see. It's kind of what you'd think he would be, he's definitely the funniest guy around when he needs to be, and
that's really cool.
Interesting.
Man, I could probably listen to it all day. So going back into Luck, or what's his role with that? Is it very hands off, as I'd imagine?
Yeah, we call him the Godfather, or like our landlord. And, like we make the jokes all the time about that.
Comes around to play a song.
Yeah. I mean, he plays his set, and we we had a few conversations about stuff. He called, like, I have like a video one year he sent of him like being like, "You guys are killing it, we love this. It's like so fun." And
hold
he's
on
like,
to that affirmation.
yeah, it's like I got put on the phone with him. I think like our second year, and it was the first year that he played. And his wife called me, and like I was like,
so he didn't even play the first year?
No, the first 2 years he didn't play, actually. So I think it was the third year that it was the first time he ever played.
I mean, that makes sense. Yeah. You're just utilizing the
space.
space.
And they kind of felt us out, They kind of were like,
Vibe
let's see if
checks.
these kids are like we probably shouldn't play it until we know they can actually roll. Yeah, exactly. Let's see what these guys do to our phone. Like, it down. Let's see if he can do it.
Yeah.
But he, I think it was like the third year, and I got a phone call, and I answered, and it was his wife, and she was sort of like, "Here, 1 second." And she like put him on the phone. He was like, "Hey, like," he's like, "You did a great." And he's like, "That was super cool. Like, what are we doing? When are we doing it again?" And it sort of like instilled that like thought. And I think that's probably happened 3 or 4 times throughout the process over the years, where he's like, "We doing it again? What's the plan?" And it's like every time I hear that, I'm like, I guess if you want us to, like, we'll keep doing it. As long as you want to keep playing and hanging, like we'll keep throwing it. And, but yeah, he's like, they're very hands off. Like his wife kind of engages a lot as manager, works with us, his team, but like for the most part, like, he comes, he plays, he shows up for the things, he's there, like, he'll be home a lot of times around that time period. And so it ends up just being like an annual kind of homecoming for him to like have a moment off the road and get to play in his backyard. One of the few places he gets to like drive to his gig. So he'll like drive his truck down from the house and like pull right up to stage and run up to stage.
How old is Willie?
90.
He just turned 90.
90.
Yeah,
Wow.
90th birthday was like April 29th. Yeah.
That's crazy.
That is awesome.
11 years you've been doing this thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, so in that 11 years, how has Luck grown? How has it changed? Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions here, but like music festival, how does that mean to you now? What does Luck mean to you? Where is it going?
So I think like it started as a party that we wanted to do as a place to like celebrate musicians we loved, right? And it was like something like, let's give a platform for people we love their music who don't maybe have a platform to perform. And at the time, South by Southwest was like shifting into like, this was like Lady Gaga meat dress territory. Like it was becoming like Doritos Towers and
amazing,
this big thing.
Explain.
There was less about music. It was like, but it was like hilarious, and it still is. Now there's like drones spelling out names in the sky or whatever, barcodes.
Explain for our listeners who don't know what it is or are outside of Texas or what South by is.
Yeah, so South by Southwest is like a global, what started as I believe, I want to say, did South by start as I think it was a music festival originally.
Oh, really?
I think it was,
film. It was one or the other.
I thought it was film.
Yeah, it was like, I remember going to film festival and not even knowing what it was. It was so tiny feeling.
Right.
But I remember also the music being like one street on 6th Street, just clubs, and you just walked around. And like, early years, it really was a discovery, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. And then it was like, then the sponsors got bigger, then the bands got bigger, then it became like who's who, and then the people almost forgot that they were there for the conference or for whatever it was. Now I would say it's like a global culture festival that is talking about like, I mean, they go from everything from politics to environmental to food systems to music to there's literally gathering. It's a culture gathering, it's a conference, it's like TED Talks on steroids in person, kind of like experiential stuff. There's just so much going on. I think that you know, when we started Luck, it was like I was working in the film stuff still. We worked South by was our everybody's cash cow. Like I shot Bill Nye the Science Guy with like
Bill.
yeah, like
Bill.
it in like a weird venue in 6th Street, and then like would go.
Was
I
that
shot
after y'all's time or?
Yeah.
Still not?
No, that was my prime
No,
time.
you had no
Yes.
Magic School Bus and Miss Frizzle.
Yeah.
Magic School Bus.
Yeah, and then it was like I did we did like Perez Hilton's party every year.
Whoa.
Like I remember shooting like some of these artists that like blew up like after that and stuff, and it was one of those moments, but it was like always the most awkward things, and it was super weird and very like it's just a different thing, and we were just like, man, I kind of wish we could have parties. And so like Luck really grew out of that desire to have something that felt like Austin again, felt like Texas, felt like what we grew up in, like going to a Green Hall show or a show in Austin at like some of the smaller clubs, and seeing like those more like communal music where it was like the musicians respected each other and knew each other, things like that. And so we tried to start it with that, and then over the years it like the first year was a party we just wanted to see if we could pull it off. We had no idea what we were doing. Like I drove a box truck around for like days picking up kegs and running things, like my buddy Cameron.
Stressful.
And like yeah, it's like an entire pallet of Tito's gets spilled all over us like in a truck. Like it's like you're going to, so like it was an experience. And I remember calling like Scott, who's one of our operations manager now for Luck, he's one of my partners. Like I called him like year 2 and was like, hey man, I don't want to drive a truck all day, so like would you like to come be a partner and run this thing with me just to help me? And like he threw a festival up in Oklahoma, and I was just like, I feel like you know what you're doing, please help me so I don't have to be in a truck all day. Yeah. And it was like then we just started giving it more and more structure and making it into an event. I think it was like year 3 when Willie played, and when it started to become like we were like sold out. Like the first 2 years, let's just put it this way, the first 2 years the sheriffs came and unplugged us the first 2 years. We're like, we didn't have permits, we didn't have any permission to do
there
anything.
even like noise ordinance
oh
out
yeah
there?
For sure. There was like it's like 10 p.m. and like we were shut down every year like right around that time period. Like the first year was Gary Clark Jr. was on stage, and they were like, who's going to jail tonight? Like that's literally what the sheriff said as he pulled up. He's like, who's going to jail? Like everybody was like, like all of us. Like, I don't know. Yeah. And so like,
that's the correct choice. Yeah. I am Spartacus.
And they let him play like one. They were like, he could play one more song, and he played like a 12-minute Bright Lights and like closed it down. And then like the second year, it was Jim James and My Morning Jacket. Oh, wow. And they like showed up, and they're like, what are you guys doing? They were like, what is this? And like, so they shut us down sort of again. They like let him finish his set. We got out of there, barely pulled it off. And then like, they let us know that it was over. And so year 3, they were like, you cannot do that again. You need a permit, you need this, whatever. And I remember the fire marshal, like we'd already announced the festival and we were starting to put it together. And it was like 3 weeks out from the event. And I got a call from like the fire marshal, and it was like, yeah, you want to go to jail? And so it was like we were like forced hand to pull permits and do all the process last minute. And it was beautiful, like Texas to the bone, where it was like they just like hazed us. It's like they knew we didn't know what we were doing, and they were like, we're gonna actually like overkill it. We're gonna tell them they need double what they need. We're gonna and so they just like threw it all at us, and we figured it out.
Like
and then and I feel like we earned our like there's literally like we now every year we go to a hearing, and like the county commissioner's court approves our permit and all this stuff, and it's a process. And like but like they like literally when we pulled it off, I feel like the fire marshal and sheriff's department were like, well, these guys they got grit. They got grit. Yeah. And so like we kind of earned their favor and became, now they like, you know, they've actually helped us over the years and helped us to get through some hard times. And so anyway, it kept growing, and it went, I think it was year 3 that it finally hit its like capacity, and we realized that was its capacity and started to think like, okay, we're going to keep doing this. And that's when we partnered with Willie. That's when we started to say like, this is actually going to be a business. This is going to be something that we grow and we maintain this town. And so it was around that time that we decided to like really give it structure and grow it. And we also decided like we needed to cap it. We needed to like make sure it preserved a certain culture and community where people could experience it in a way that wasn't like another major festival or shoulder to shoulder.
You gave a party intention.
Yeah. And so like we really like got in touch with our sort of like soul of it, with like, what do we want this to be? And that's when we had that discovery phase and really like started giving it a voice and figuring that out. And that's when we called it Luck Reunion. That's when we renamed it. And so it became the family reunion for us. It was like every year we get back together and we hold space for everyone to come back together and celebrate this. And so it wasn't but like a year or two after that like it was selling out so fast that people were so mad and it was getting so crazy that they were like, I mean, it was like we just get screamed at on the internet, and it was like you go on Facebook or whatever, and like the tickets would sell out in like 0.2 seconds, and people's credit cards would have been getting run, and like our website would crash every year for 2 years. And,
Okay, Tay Swift.
yeah, it was hilarious. So but we had that bad, and like people would be like, "You don't know what you're doing. Your website's terrible. Like, I want my money back." You know, it was like a whole thing.
Yeah.
And so then we were like, we're gonna have to figure this out. So we started doing these like lotteries, and that's how now the festival's sold through a series of like 5 or 6 different lotteries, and we randomize drawings of everybody who enters, and then we send out winning codes, and those people can purchase. So you actually have to win a chance to purchase tickets.
Wow.
And so from that then too, we started like our Lucky Draw Live, which is like our in-person version of that, because the locals complained that they didn't have a good enough chance, and so we started to create chances for the locals. And so it's just been like listening to the audience and like trying to be human in that experience, where it's not like we're a corporation, we're a business, like we just got to keep printing money and throwing festivals. It's more like every year we listen to like the crowd, we talk to the bands. Like our booking is a lot about like having conversations with bands, like who are you listening to, who's going to be the new band, like, oh, this drummer just started a new project, like you know, even like when Father John Misty played, it was like the phone call was sort of like, the drummer from the Fleet Foxes has got a solo project, and we're like, can we hear? And they're like, no. And we're like, cool, should we try to book him anyway? And then it was like, he doesn't have a band, he needs a band, and we're like, let's book him a band. And then he got up on stage and was like, I don't even know who you guys are, get off stage. It was like the funniest like but he I think he took acid that night. It was like a mess. But like all of our like, it's just always been a reactionary project, and I think that's like comes down to like that ethos. I think that earlier I'd kind of been saying something about Willie and his like, he's a listener in a way, and you can like see that. And I think that's something I've tried to like instill into Luck and talking to people is like, let's listen and evolve every time. Like, let's not just like keep our heads down and like say this is what we do and we're gonna like make the fans like it or hate it. It's sort of like we're part of, it's a two-way conversation. Like every year we're trying to make the experience better for them, trying to make the experience better for the musicians, and like just hold space. Like all we are is space. And then the biggest change that's happened over the last like 10 years is that we went from we put together a festival and curate it to a festival happens and curates itself, and we are like, I always say we're the bumpers on the bowling lane. Yeah, like we're no longer the bowler, we're no longer in charge of like we literally are just kind of keeping it in the lanes, because like we get submitted 1,000+ bands every year. We get sent all these things, like all these vendors, all of these people, all these sponsors, and so like it's really about who we let in and like checking that everybody understands the culture and trying to give it like some structure, more than it is like us saying this is what we want to do. And that's been the biggest change over the years, is just sort of like trying to continue to keep it sacred in a way, keep it special, and then allow access to more people through different routes. Like, can we expand things? Can we create content? Can we?
And that can't be the easy route.
No,
like, that's not the easy.
It's definitely. I mean, the easy route would be make it 10,000 people and make $10 million and sell it to Live Nation next year.
Right.
So
I commend you for that. I mean, that's like, it's not easy.
No, it's definitely not. And then over the pandemic, it was like we definitely. I mean, like what a lot of people don't realize about Luck is they think they're like, oh, it's Willie Nelson. It's a festival, like they're killing it, right? Like everybody talks about it, it sells out, like they're killing it. But the reality is, like, we started it with like $30,000, and it's never had any capital input to it. We skated through the pandemic by like pivoting the whole company into being like a production company because of my film background. It was like, well, we're gonna start making video. And so we like live streamed, and then we started live streaming for other people, and then we started filming for other people, and we like ran the money through the company to keep people on staff, to keep it going, and then had to pivot back to an events company,
mob, basically.
So,
So laundering.
The
Willie mob.
It's all fake money. And we're a cult. So
how did COVID change the way? Like, what did you do for those few years?
COVID was crazy. Like we canceled Luck 5 days prior to actually it happening. We'd already loading in. We already had everything happening. Like, it was like bands were booked. Everything was happening. Everything was moving forward. And we kept going down that road. So, like, it was a huge shock. It was like I had a meeting with, I talked earlier about the, like, what are they called? The Travis County Commissioner's Court. And like we were sitting there and we had a meeting, like the judge, Sarah Eckhart, who was like the county commissioner. She's now like, she's in I want to say she's Senate, like Texas Senate or whatever, but she was like, there's no way you're going to be canceled. Like, this hasn't even really made it to Texas yet. You're 100% good. And we were like sitting there, it was like me and like the Austin rodeo. And we were like, hey, if we cancel this, it's going to be like a lot of money. Like we're loading stuff in tomorrow. And when we start, there's no turning back. And they were like, no way it's getting canceled. And then like 2 days later, she called me and was like, yeah, everything's canceled. South by's announcing later today that they're canceling.
So heartbreaking.
You guys are next. And so it was like pretty traumatic. And that's when we pivoted to doing this like virtual live stream, because we were like, oh, we have like, you know, this huge audience who's super crushed. We've been working on this for a year, since last year.
It's your life.
No breaks. Yeah. And like, we're like, our whole team is devastated. So we're like, what can we do? And we're like, well, let's live stream it. And we're like, everyone was like, what? We can't get people together. And I was like, well, I've done all these remote things before. You just like, as long as they have like Skype or something, we can merge them in. It's like the news. Like, you get remote broadcasts, and people are like, I had to convince everybody kind of like how it would work. And then we sat down and started doing some tests. I called like old buddies. The funniest part of the whole thing is that like in 2019 December, I closed my video production company to put all of my eggs in the Luck basket to grow it. We hired a staff.
Wow.
I closed my video company, sold my gear. My only job is Luck.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
3 months later,
Yeah.
I have no video company, no gear. Our whole staff has no like project to work on, and I have no other income. And I'm like, oh, so like I called all my friends who I just like basically sold gear to, and was like, we need a switcher, we need this, we need camera gear. And so we built like a kit, and we like did this virtual live stream, and ended up having like 2.5 million viewers, and it like ended up being this crazy thing where people were like, what? And then so like we kind of like, you know, we didn't break the internet, it's 2 million people, but it was like at the time, like everybody was like, wait, what? And so like our phones just never stopped ringing after that. And then we did like a 421 for Willie's birthday, we called it. And we did like a party for that, did a live stream thing. And then like, sure enough, it was like within a few months, it was like every week I'd get 3 or 4 phone calls from like Farm Aid or from this person or from this other festival or from like a agent from another company. And they were like, hey, we want to do this thing. How do we do it? And so at a certain point you realize you're like, oh wait, like like I shouldn't just like spend hours on the phone with everybody teaching them how. I should like, we should start doing this for them. And so we sort of pivoted the company into being like a live streaming events company for 2 years. And so we did our own streams and got sponsors and did like cooking shows, and we started our own channel called Luck.stream, which we've sort of phased out now because it just didn't hold up really. It didn't make a lot of sense for what we were doing. But it like, we just pivoted fully and then had to pivot back again. And so we just ran from one side of the boat to the other for 2 years. And then coming out of the pandemic, started to throw events again. And our whole team was like, how do we do that? It's a ride. Yeah. It's really been like, so we're actually, this year was the first year that I feel like we really like got back to like what we were in the groove again. Like we're thinking ahead, not tomorrow. You know, I think a lot of people experience that, but in the event world, it's like, it's a lot.
For sure. Talk about the character of Luck and what your goal is with it now, and where I've heard the phrase anti-Coachella. Talk about what that is.
That wasn't us that ever said it. So that was like, we did a Fast Company interview.
That was what Google says.
I think 2019 festival, I think like Fast Company did an article with us, and we like interviewed us and stuff. And then afterwards, like the headline of it was like, Luck is the anti-Coachella. We're like, don't tell Coachella. You know, like I feel like they might get mad at us. Yeah, but like it always has been about being a community and being intimate and being something that was that. And so the ethos going forward with it is really about preserving that and the responsibility of that community, both with Willie. Like Willie's 90 years old. I mean, like a patron saint of Texas. Like, you know, you really think about it, it's like Willie really is like, he represents so much to so many people. And Luck as a town is this movie set built for, you know, Redhead Stranger, and has all this history. And so like there's sort of this like responsibility to legacy and to history that I feel with the festival, that we all kind of as a team are like, we have a responsibility to maintain this, and then we also have a responsibility to create a platform for people in the future. Like we've become a discovery platform. Like artists that play our festival and a couple other festivals, like they're the ones that get booked on everything all year. There's a certain like cachet to it. It's like it can put people on the map that maybe nobody knew about. and we feel like that's a little bit of a responsibility too, is to continue to be a place for that. Like there's less and less places for someone to be discovered and like, be on a bill with Willie Nelson when they're, a band that maybe plays to 50 people on the weekends, so it's like, it really becomes like an opportunity. So
you're also giving them that old
preserving
school, like now it's like TikTok or it's like everyone jokes about SoundCloud, SoundCloud rapper, or you get on TikTok, you create content, but like you're almost creating an opportunity to do it the old school way. Of like getting in front of people and showing what you've got and saying like, oh, I'm an agent almost. In addition to running a festival, in addition to creating a culture and putting people out there who may otherwise have not been seen or been able to tour. That's cool.
Yeah, it's like it's a responsibility as much as it is an opportunity. But it's rad. It's like it's just there's less and less places for human interaction in today's world, and I think like myself, my biggest pride is that we're a place for human interaction. Like you can go and meet someone that shares a hobby with you or an interest with you that you would have never met on, Instagram or TikTok. You're not going to have those experiences, and I think those things are going to become more and more valuable as we continue to become like more and more people that work on laptops and live in our own little houses and worlds. Like how many times a year do people get together in large groups and interact with each other and like share something, which is
totally
important.
And I think it parallels the beauty of live music too. I mean, look at Austin. I mean, that culture like desires live music. I mean, I live there now, and that's all people want to do is just go see who's playing. And same thing with here in New Braunfels too. I mean, a place that you grew up in is, you got these young and upcoming guys that are, nobody knows who they are, but they're really
a songwriter on every corner here.
Yeah, and they're good too. Like, so yeah, I mean,
there's definitely something in the water in Texas with like, there's like that outdoor, like people just come from like space, and then like, we're changing fast, and I think we're losing more and more of that. So like, space is valuable. Like, I don't know, it is true.
Yeah. What's your relationship like with Willie now?
It's like I wouldn't say we're like I see him a couple times a year, and I think that's the thing is especially after the pandemic. Right. Like, it's like after the pandemic, he's been even more isolated than ever. Like it used to be like you go up on the bus and chat a little bit, or you go up to the house or whatever. Now it's like, did you test? Before you're coming over, did you? What do you like? We're really, it's like we're trying to all keep Willie safe, and I think that's a big important thing is as he gets older and like just taking care of that and holding space for it. So I mean, like we've had less chances to interact in the last few years, but I did, I shot tons of videos for him back, over the years, the last like 11 years, I've shot a lot of music videos. There's been a certain trust that's been built, and then just being like able to sit in the room and like be a fly on the wall to Willie's world. I mean, it's really interesting. Like I've been on from all different perspectives of like sitting there and like, when they're having poker games, to like being on the bus while he's being interviewed, to being, doing shoots with him and stuff and seeing the different angles. And like, he's like the most consistent Willie Nelson. He's Willie Nelson. I mean, he is the person that you imagine. And like, I still have those little moments where you like, I'll sit there and kind of have to pinch myself a little bit, because it's like, this is the guy who I listened to like Redheaded Stranger's record on repeat over and over again in my apartment when I was, 19 and 20. And like, now I'm sitting here at his poker table and he's wearing like short shorts and no shirt and like drinking hot tea and chatting. And it's like, this is weird. It's like you try to, but it's like, it's funny because he's so human that you forget that he's Willie Nelson when you're with him. And so it's, he's just like this clever, intelligent, fun, like interesting guy. And so like, if you let it get in your head, you could be like, oh, it's Willie Nelson. But the truth is like, he'll pull up in his truck and chat just to, just like any, uncle or whatever you got, he's just like a really real guy, and he's who you think he is. Like that's what's really cool. I've met a lot of like celebrities through film and through other stuff, and there's a few I would say like I could count on like one or two hands, like the like Jeff Bridges and the Willie Nelsons, who are like, when you see the movie and you think of who they are, and then when you meet them and they're that person, and like you get that fulfillment of like, they're exactly what I thought. Like Willie's one of them. He's like he's the guy you think he is. That
is great. Cool.
So you're 37. I mean, career speaking, that's still young. Like you've been doing this for 11 years now. Is there other aspirations for you beyond, like, now that you're in the music festival game, and you probably learn more skills and new things, like beyond luck, is there anything else that you're interested in doing?
Yeah, I
or on
mean,
the
a
horizon?
lot. You know, I think
Yeah.
like luck again was an accident. You know,
Right.
and I think that like I feel a huge sort of like obligation to it, and I feel
Sure.
like that I tell people when they ask about that kind of question of like, well, how long would you stay with, like, well, what's your plan with luck? Is that your
Where do you
life?
see
And I'm like,
yourself in 5 years?
yeah, and I'm like, you know, I intend to whatever happens with luck, whether I leave it, whether I'm on a board, or whether I'm part of it, like if we whatever happens with it, I would love to see it go on for 20 to 50 more years, being luck, the space, being able to preserve that legacy and the history, and like holding space for that to come. Like I would love to whenever I pass that torch to someone younger than me and more ambitious than me, whatever that might be, that I can know that there's a future for it. Like
Yeah,
that
you
would
want to
say
see it
my
go
biggest
beyond
goal.
Willie as well.
Yeah, it's like
I
you
think
want it to have
that's-
its own future. You want
yeah,
it to pave a
legacy.
future that like honors Willie, even if Willie's not the lead of it, you know, every year. You know, even if he's not headlining, you want it to be a place where people can go and sort of like pay homage to him in a way. And I think to me that's what it really could be, is an amazing space to continue. I mean, right now we get to do it to him with him, which is amazing. Like all these artists get to come and like stand
Incredible.
on stage with him and sing, you know, finale, and it's like that's I mean, I can't even imagine as a young artist what that must feel like to go up
Yeah.
on stage with Willie and be like, I'm singing with Willie the finale song that I've, you know, grew up watching him do. I mean, that's incredible. But
Yeah.
I would love to see that go on for generations, right? And then my own career, it's like I'm already, you know, I'm not going to go into too much detail because I haven't announced it yet, but I'm like, I have another festival I'm actually starting next May, so I'm going to be announcing that probably.
I think
this
I was going to
winter.
ask you about that.
Yeah.
I won't say nothing.
Yeah, I won't go too far into it.
Yeah, yeah.
But I got another project next May that I'm going to be
Okay.
launching because I put it together. I've got my production company, Noise Frontier, which is sort of becoming more and more. I'm promoting shows. I'm helping book some venues. I'm consulting on projects.
So
So
you got
like,
music fever.
yeah, I'm enjoying the like storytelling aspect of it. Like I found that there's a gap in the music world, which hasn't really been tapped, I don't think, and to an extent, of like fan first experiences that truly are like well-rounded and experiential in a way that like people can have memories and connect with them and like have a story to tell, and that the artist can have that same kind of experience. Like I want to continue to prove that there's a way to do music festivals differently.
I think
And that's
almost
something that-
in like you think of like Burning Man, all these things that started, I think, with that in mind, but they quickly,
yeah
you know, it gets to the
sure.
capitalism part.
Yeah,
of it.
everything goes to that if you let it. And
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm like, I want to start and like continue to build things that like have legacy and future that don't need to be. It's like
aren't made for the
if you had a
influencer.
portfolio of 8 projects that all made some money, you can have a great living and not have to be like Live Nation, which not to like shit on Live Nation, but like
Call me Live Nation.
not to own, you know, hundreds of venues and hundreds of festivals and just make them all be printing money. You know, and I think some of them are really cool. It's like there's something to be said about getting the big names on stage and doing these insane displays too. Like that's a thing. But also like sitting in a living room and listening to someone play music can change your life. Sitting like in a small space and meeting new people who share a hobby with you can create community. Like you stop seeing each other as like people who are different than you, and you start seeing your similarities. And I think that like just like getting outdoors, having a meal with someone, music is that other kind of experience where you can sit down with someone and bond over something you share a likeness in. And Willie's always known that. I mean, like he became, you know, like that was what's beautiful about me being kind of like the caretaker of that project, is like I respect that more than anything, is that he always held space for people to forget their differences. Like you always hear the like, oh, the rednecks and the hippies hung out together at Armadillo World headquarters and Willie Nelson, right? But like there's so much truth to that. And like look at our world right now. Everyone's like behind computers, behind doors, not hanging out, and they all just sit and dwell on what's different about each other. But if you get people in the same room doing the same thing, something they love, for an hour, those walls start to drop, and they're like, wow, what's up, man? What you know, like you seem cool. What's your story? And then they'll just like forget what's different, and they actually realize, and there's a human connection in that moment. And I think that's what I want to keep doing. And like even if it goes into like, you know, back into film projects, and I still get to do a lot of that, so I get to flex those muscles every once in a while. Like through music festivals, I can make documentaries, I can create stories, I can build projects, and then, you know, if I'm crazy, I can maybe make a movie someday. Who knows? Like if I want to burn all my money, you know. So.
You mentioned briefly getting in outdoors and the parallels there. Are you surfing a lot, right?
Yeah, surfing's my like that's the hobby that I kind of live for. And
Cool,
like that's
sweet.
my like I grew up even surfing like the Gulf Coast is really where I started. when I
Okay,
was
so
young.
Galveston and
Like Port A, Galveston, South Padre. We'd take family trips, and I was
Yeah.
like, it's like my mom likes to joke about how she's like, yeah, Matt was like going to entrepreneurship school at TCU, and the week before he left, bought a surfboard. I don't know what's going on in his life. Like, and so
Yeah.
like that was like my thing. I was like, I fell in love
Speaks
with
to
it the
your
first
wider
time I
range
did
of
it, and
skills.
that's it. And so like I
Yeah.
moved to New York, and I surfed every day. I lived in New York. I strategically moved like off the A train where I could ride it out to Rockaway and surf before work.
That's awesome.
Like I moved out to California, surfed every day, and
Yeah.
now I live in Texas again and feeling a little landlocked. And like I go to Port A for surf, but I've like started going to Waco surf up in Waco all the time and surfing there.
Yeah.
And then the Gulf Coast, and I take a trip a year at least to do something. But
Yeah, cool.
which is like maybe I just threw an Easter egg out of the Waco surf. We're doing some stuff together, so that's a future project.
Yeah, yeah. That's cool. I think Haley has another segment for us.
Yeah. So we're gonna start a new segment called "On This Date in
Okay.
History," and coincidentally enough, when we were researching for this date, May 26th, we saw this one and we were like, "Well, we have to do that." I mean,
This is May
there's
26th.
no question.
What
yeah.
year?
Don't know.
Go.
Do you know?
No, you wrote the question.
Like on this day in history.
Next time, we'll
On May
research a little
26th,
better.
at
But
some
on
point.
this date, May 26th, Willie Nelson releases his 18th studio album, "Redheaded Stranger," which becomes his #1 country album.
What?
So
There you
See,
go.
serendipity. Look
yeah,
at that.
it is. We were
Serendipity,
talking
baby.
Town
about
I'm walking
serendipity.
in. The,
Beautiful.
Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
That is wild.
I
That's
want to hear
awesome.
another random weird story, and this doesn't have to make I don't have to stretch out the interview anymore.
It will.
But the
Cut it here, Haley.
so the Redheaded Stranger is like what the Luck Town was built for,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it was like I guess 2019 in the spring or something, where I was like, why don't we screen the Redheaded Stranger in Luck? And so I started doing all this research, and I'm like, where's the Redheaded Stranger? And it turns out like it's not on the internet. There's no versions of it. Like
Yeah.
I'd seen a VHS version. That's how I saw it. But nobody really seen the movie, and nobody knew where it was. And then I asked Willie's manager, and he's like, I don't know. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, there was a copy. I don't know. I think you got to ask like so and so. You got to. It just everybody referred me to someone
You're
else.
pointing.
And so I wake up. I'm like, wait, no one knows where the Redheaded Stranger movie is. Like where? Like what?
That's crazy. Yeah.
This is insane. And so
Who owns it?
So it's co-owned by like a group of different like people, like Willie's management team. Like there was a guy in his touring party that owned some of it. The director,
Oh, wow.
producers,
So multiple.
and I opened this can of worms as I started going down and like start
Yeah.
talking to people, and it leads me to Bill Whitliff, who like at Texas State University, there's the Whitliff collection.
Oh, okay.
He was who wrote the television series Lonesome Dove. So he's the one who adapted McMurtry's script, right?
No
so,
way.
Yeah, so he also directed and wrote Redheaded Stranger. It was a passion project of his. So he
Wow.
wrote it, and him and Willie worked together, and he wanted to put Willie in it. Nobody would fund it. Nobody believed that Willie could act or like whatever. Nobody wanted to make the movie. And so they shopped it. They couldn't get it done. So they decided they were going to self-produce it, and they went out to get money. And so they went out to like find the funds to make Redheaded Stranger
Gotcha.
and started building the town with their own money. And like, it's just like, it was like one of those like things I do, which is just like spend your money and do crazy shit. And then like have your wife be like, why would you do that? But so like they start building this Western town for that movie. And I met the guy who built the town. I like through this process, I'm like meeting everyone, like, and trying to invite them. I'm like, I want to find the movie. Let's get it. Let's screen it out at Luck. And I want you to come, and we're going to do like a panel. And so I build this relationship with Bill, who refers me. And finally we figure out Shep Gordon, who, if you don't know who Shep Gordon is, there's a documentary called Supermensch that Mike Myers made that was about Shep Gordon. That's about his sort of like just being like the ultimate mensch and just sort of like helping everyone around him and throughout his career. He also created the Celebrity Chef. Like he was one of the first like
interesting.
managers of celebrity chefs and created that sort of genre.
Huh.
And so Shep also was like Alice Cooper's manager. Like that's what he was like his first really big, thing over the years.
Yeah.
But he also produced film. And so Shep actually became one of the big financiers and producers of Willie's film, of Redheaded Stranger. Yeah. And so I ended up getting in touch with Shep, and I believe it's Carolyn, who's the other co-producer with him on it. And they're like, we do have a copy. It's in a like air-conditioned storage unit in Van Nuys. And like but it's not the negative, it's the positive. And I'm like, where's the negative? They're like, no one knows.
Oh.
Like, no one knew where the negative print was of the film. So,
Wow.
like, literally, it could be anywhere. It could be gone.
Oh my
Yeah.
And
gosh.
so we find the positive, and I go to Alamo Draft House and convince, like, talk to their team, and, like, they have an film archive. And so we ship the only positive print that we know of to the American Genre Film Archive, who scans it into 4K and makes, like, a DHP, like, basically so you project in theaters and, like, put it on internet or whatever. And now it's, like, on Amazon, or I believe it's Amazon and a couple others. It's streaming again.
Wow.
And we screened it for the first time digitally out of luck that, like, year, and sadly enough, actually, Bill Whitliff passed away, like, weeks before we did it, like, in the
man.
process of finding the film. He knew that we found it, knew that we were scanning it, but never got to see it. And then, like, I promised a copy to the Whitliff collection or whatever for that. But
Wow.
yeah, so, like, full crazy circle.
That's incredible.
That's
Like, we found the film,
incredible.
like, I accidentally saved it from going into oblivion
Yeah.
because, like, there was no digitized version for
Yeah.
the future. And so it's pretty wild.
Gosh,
You just,
what
like,
a
be on that
story.
journey.
Yeah,
And then
that's
and
crazy.
it's like part of preserving the legacy of luck, you know?
Right,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, it goes
and also
with it.
serendipity, like just
Serendipity.
because we were like, let's screen it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
What a rabbit hole.
Man,
Yeah.
imagine somebody finding that negative. Like,
yeah,
something
and it's
like
got to
that.
be out there. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah, it's
I'll just put
probably
it this way: it could be anywhere. Like Willie's world is like
Yeah.
you go into his studio and there's like you pick a tape up off the floor and you're like, oh, cool, like Waylon Jennings. They did, you know, like you're just like that's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like in the,
Yeah.
you know,
Wow.
like they're not possession people. They're very much like they live in the moment
can
in
see
real
that.
life. So I don't think anybody's
see
thinking
that.
about film prints.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except your stressed out mind.
Yeah, except for me, who's like, this is history. you
Yeah.
know? Even
What
the
are
West-
you doing?
I feel like
Yeah.
I was like the one in the Western town too. I was like, we gotta save this place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a
Everyone's like,
living
"Ah."
landmark, and like everyone's like, yeah, it's
Oh,
cool.
sure.
Willie
Yeah.
Willie's like, don't touch it. It's my like I like it
Yeah.
how it is. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
Oh my
I like
gosh.
looking at it.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's been part of the like give and take of the whole thing. Is as much as he likes the party and the festival and that kind of stuff, he's like, don't mess up my town.
Yeah.
Like he's like, this is my Western town where I hang out. Like I
Yeah.
kept it for a reason, so I can play poker and hang out in it. I don't want it to become like
Yeah.
Dollywood. You
Yeah.
know, not in a negative way, but
Right.
like, just,
Right.
Yeah.
he's like, this is my thing.
Just preserve.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, man, that's kind of all we have time for today, unfortunately. I want to ask one more question. We ask everybody this.
Yeah.
But it's, what does the outdoors mean to you? And kind of one sentence is kind of all our whole MO is getting people outside, and there's tons of parallels, obviously, with listening to music and stuff.
Out from behind the screens, out from behind
Yeah.
the theaters.
Yeah.
out.
But yeah, in one sentence, if possible, what's being in the outdoors mean to you?
Outdoors is like a place for community. I mean, it's where we came from, and it's where we it's the best place for us to connect. I don't know way. I mean,
Yeah.
For me, it's surfing, it's grilling outside, it's music festivals, it's experience, and like all of those moments are memories. Like every good moment I can think of in my life, like 90% of them, I would say, would be outdoor.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome.
That's
cool.
great.
Great answer. We'll plug your stuff real quick. If you want to mention your some other socials, whatever.
Yeah, you could find everything I'm working on at luckreunion.com or Luck Reunion's socials, and then also Noise Frontier is my events company and production company. Noise Frontier on social media and noisefrontier.com.
Cool.
That's sick, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Well, we really appreciate you coming out again. Thank you so much.
yeah, appreciate you guys having me. It's fun.
Sure.
Let's do it.
Thanks for
guys.
my week
Finish
beer,
it, buddy.
Exactly.
Finish it, buddy.